Welcome, everybody. We are talking this morning with Sarah Noble. Let me read you a little bit about Sarah. We're here celebrating Mental Health Awareness Week in New Zealand. And Sarah, this is something that she is passionate about, something I'm passionate about as well. So just a quick read. Sarah is a mama of one. She has another way, and I'm sure she's going to tell us a little bit more about that. She's a maternal mental health coach and mindfulness teacher. And Sarah's passionate about empowering mums to manage their mind and optimize their mental health so they can navigate motherhood and life with confidence, clarity, and authenticity. I am all about that. Sarah, it's really nice to have you here. We talked about doing this a long time ago, and here we are. It just seemed like the perfect opportunity. Hey, so welcome.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. So tell us, you're really in the midst of motherhood. I mean, my kids are 16 and 13. I'm in a totally different place. And, our mental health is a little bit different. I mean, I'm dealing with, that separation of my kids out there doing things on their own. So that brings new parenting struggles, let me tell you. But what's going on in your world as mama and mama to be right now?
So right now, actually, there's quite a bit going on for us. So I'll be 20 weeks pregnant with number 2 tomorrow. And that's actually after a miscarriage, which I had in January. So I'm also navigating pregnancy this time around after a loss, which is obviously a whole nother level. And I'm someone who can certainly struggle with anxiety a little bit. I had postpartum anxiety with my son, Dylan. And so just after having that loss, the anxiety, in pregnancy has kind of just stepped up a little bit of a notch. So I'm open to talking about that, which I think is much needed. And Dylan he's 21, just turned 22 months actually. So he's really, really turning into like a little boy, like a little proper human. And it astounds me how fast they grow in leaps and bounds. And so for us at the moment, actually, we've just kind of navigating, obviously, pregnancy thing. The first sort of, honestly, like 16, 17 weeks were pretty hard. So it's only been the last few weeks that my fatigue and my morning sickness has kind of calmed down a little bit. And I feel like a little bit more human. Yeah, so it's been a long first trimester. So dealing with that, and then I've had some back and hip pain, which has been causing me a bit of trouble. And my partner's actually off work at the moment with a really bad back injury. So we've been trying to navigate that because he's very limited in his interactions with Dylan in terms of he can't pick him up and put him into the cot for nap time. So like I'm taking over, a little bit more of the load than I was normally doing in that respect. So, which has been quite tough with the hard first trimester. And we're not one of those families that has a village, and that's something that is obviously very common and something that can cause a lot of issues in terms of mental health. So I totally understand that. I'm living that firsthand. It's hard, and then add in some injuries and a pregnancy, and a very active toddler. And it's challenging, but I'm very, very lucky to have a lot of tools in my tool belt and have a lot of, awareness around how I'm feeling and what I need, and, to be able to reduce my stress. And I am obviously tapping into my own learnings and teachings and toolbox quite a lot at the moment. So, yeah.
Hey, and that's exactly, when you were talking, I was thinking, I've heard your story over the years, talking to mums so many times, and I've heard worse challenges. We're kind of dealt this hand, and we sometimes don't know what we're going to get dealt, do we? And so really, I think the key you pointed out was this awareness of myself. And so what can you do? What skills do you have, that maybe you didn't have even before you were a mom? And so maybe back us up in your journey a little bit. Like, how did you develop this awareness of self so that you can, check in and then take those steps? So before you can use tools, you've got to know you need them, right? You've got to have that awareness. So how did you get here?
Yeah, it took a long time, not gonna lie. My journey really kicked up a notch in about 2014 when I left New Zealand and went on my OE to the UK. So I had a 2-year working visa. I went by myself, and I'd been in a long-term relationship, and I wasn't happy with where I was at in terms of my relationship with myself, my mental health, like just everything really. So when I was over there, I was obviously alone. I didn't have a partner to worry about. So I just kind of immersed myself in following what felt good for me, and following my instincts and my intuition. I went to a lot of events. Because I was in London, so there's a lot going on there, right? Went to a lot of events. I went to, retreats. I just did like a lot of stuff. I was just really just finding myself, I guess, and figuring out, who am I? Who do I want to be? How do I want to feel? And I just went on that journey, and it was obviously a roller coaster. It went up and down, but that's when it really started. And that's, it's taken me a long time to build my awareness. And the thing is, with this kind of journey, I really think there's not a like, oh yeah, here I'm like 100% perfect. It's an ongoing journey. So I'm still building my awareness now, but obviously my awareness compared to 2014 is exponential in terms of growth. And I think a lot of the problem is we live in a society where everyone wants everything yesterday, and they're not willing to be patient and actually work for things. And when it comes to mental health, it's just like, washing yourself in the shower and exercising and moving your body. You have to keep doing it. You have to keep doing that. So this awareness has grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. And it's literally a practice. It's, it's tuning into my mind and my body. How do I feel right now? What do I need to feel better? Do I need a hug? Do I need to go for a walk in nature? Do I need to go for a coffee date with a girlfriend and just spill my feelings? Like, asking ourselves what we actually need, slowing down enough to be able to do that, being aware of our thoughts. So these are things that I do and that I did, and being aware of my thoughts, because that can really trip up a lot of people. But the thing is that your thoughts are neither good nor bad. Your thoughts are just, they just come, they pop into your head. The issue with thoughts is how we react to them, how we label them, good, bad, how we, if we choose to go down the rabbit hole of, oh, what if this, or a thought comes up and we believe it, we get to choose whether we believe it or not. We get to choose whether that thought, messes with our mental health or whether it doesn't. So really learning that, like, that awareness has been a huge shift of being like, actually, thoughts are just, they're like neutral.
Yeah,
right? I'm the one. I'm the one who's in control of if I actually choose to let that thought ruin my mood, if I believe it, what label I put on it, what rabbit hole I go down by, thinking, oh, what if this happens? And then I go down this horrible, anxious, ruminating, future tripping rabbit hole, which can obviously mess with our mental health. So really being aware of my thoughts and my reaction to my thoughts has been huge. That's kind of like, I don't want to go on forever about it, but that's a good start. Like that's sort of the main thing.
I think it's important to go on about that, because it's really the foundation of all of it. Because if you don't have that awareness that my thoughts and my feelings are under my control, actually more than I think. Now, that's sort of true and sort of not, because we're unconscious beings. Most of what we're doing is unconscious. But that means that that thought, when it first pops into your head, that might be happening out of your control. So it's not that you control every single thought you ever have, but the control you do have is getting awareness. Hey, whoa, and I often say to my clients, oh, there's that story again. And not to minimize your thoughts. You take them seriously enough that you want to figure out why they're there. If you've got that not good enough thought or story going on, you want to figure out why it's there. It's just, how seriously are you really going to take it? So I think unconsciously it pops into your head, and that's probably based on your upbringing, things society's telling you, all these things. We're just so bombarded with other people's stories and other people's thoughts and feelings, aren't we? Like, we are literally bombarded, and our brain wants to go, hey, look, you've got this, and then your conscious control is getting that awareness. Now, is that where the mindfulness comes in? Because to me, I was just thinking, you're called, your page is Mindfully You. So obviously mindfulness is a big part of what you practice.
Yeah. That was a huge game changer for me in my journey, because I was the kind of person who would ruminate over the past, like, why did I say that? Oh, if I said this, then maybe things would have been different. Like, holding grudges. What if this was different? Or why did they do that? It's not fair. Dwelling on I was a victim. I was stuck in victim mode. Everything happened to me. Everything was everybody else's fault. And on the other hand, I was anxious about the future. I would worry about everything. I would think of the worst case scenario. I would think of what could go wrong. And I wasn't living in the present moment. I wasn't even living my life, because I was in my head. I was literally in the past or in the future. Which is,
can I just stop you? I just want to stop you right there and ask anyone that's listening to this, whether you're on live or listening to the recording, just stop for a moment and ask yourself, are you doing what Sarah's talking about? And how often are you doing it? How often are you obsessing about the past or worried about the future? So keep going.
Yeah, it's common. It's so common. And the problem is that most of our life is spent in our head worrying about stuff that's already gone and been and done, or stressing about things that may or may not happen, and creating stories and trying to be prepared for every single scenario. But what's going to happen? It's probably going to be the scenario we haven't prepared for, obviously. So we need to learn to really live in the moment, because that's the only moment that ever matters. It's the only moment that you can actually react in that moment and make a decision and do it. And so that was huge for me, because I was so in the past or future. And so mindfulness, when I implemented that into my life, was like, it was just a game changer. And it's a really good tool for when you find yourself getting stuck in your head in the past or the future. If you just keep as many times as you need to refocusing on what you're doing, just focusing 100% attention on watching this video or playing with your child, or not worrying about cooking dinner later, not worrying about what time your husband's coming home, or not worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow or what happened yesterday. Like, just literally 100% immersed in what you're doing. And a really good way to do that is with your senses. So when you go for a walk, leave the technology. What can you see? What can you hear? What can you taste? What can you smell? What can you touch? And you can do that in those everyday things that you do, brushing your teeth, having a shower, eating your food. So really just trying to bring that mindfulness in whenever you can, in big moments and little moments, and also when it comes to your thoughts. It's a huge tool for your tool belt, and a huge game changer for your mental health, in my opinion.
And it's not just your opinion, Sarah. I mean, luckily we've got good research that backs up what you're saying, that it's so simple yet so powerful. And I love, you kind of said, you just catch yourself. The more you practice doing this, it really is, it's like developing any muscle in your body, or any new habit. You just practice, and And, here's a funny thing. When we learn a new thought, this new idea, say, of mindfulness, or a lot of people listening will have heard about it before, and they'll think, "Oh, I suck at that. Like I so suck at this, all these tools, and I forgot to use my tools, and now look, I've been depressed for 3 days, or I'm so stuck in my anxiety." And that's okay. Again, when you notice, then, give yourself a hand pat on the back. Yay, I just noticed that I was going down that rabbit hole again. I just noticed that I'm staring at my child, and while he's playing, but I'm actually worried about something else. And now I've caught myself. So then it's like, so what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? And just keep practicing. Just keep practicing. And everything gets easier.
At the beginning, you might miss a lot of those. You might miss the rabbit hole you went down just before. You might miss the amount of time you were in the past before. But the thing is, the more you practice it, the quicker you're going to become aware of the stories, the limiting beliefs, those thoughts, be stuck in your head in the past or the future. Like, it's just the gap's going to get smaller and smaller, and you're going to be able to bounce back, quicker and catch yourself and be able to, do what you need to do to, like, in that moment, to optimize your mental health, whether that be practice mindfulness or some sort of other tool. But that awareness, like you said, is the first step. I just did a free mental health challenge recently, actually, and it's a 3-day challenge, and day 1 is awareness, day 2 is action, and day 3 is accountability, like staying motivated. How do you keep working on your mental health and incorporate it into your life, and so it becomes something that you work on daily. And I want to just quickly touch on that it doesn't need to be anything grand, because we all know that life goes up and down, right? And then say we're on a steady, even keel, then you might have a few practices you do each day. You might, think about some things you're grateful for before you go to bed, do a little meditation or some yoga or whatever. But then when the shit hits the fan, because it will at some stage, that is life, we're just being honest here, it is life. Then you've got extra tools that you can pull out of your toolbox. So there's the daily kind of simple grounding, pull up your cup things to help your mental health. And then there's the other things that you can pull out of your toolbox when things get challenging.
I think you read my mind. Well, you totally read my mind, because that's exactly where I was like, okay, so we've talked about that, but what about when the big stuff? Because, it's Mental Health Awareness Week. Next month, I think 9th to the 15th October is Baby Loss Awareness Week. People, and yourself included, have had major loss in their life, and we're all, to varying degrees, struggling with a world pandemic going on. Some of us have had really, really big things. So what are you doing to get through your loss and the really big, hard stuff?
Yeah, well, I did share my miscarriage story earlier in the year. So if anyone's interested in seeing my story, they can go back. There's lives, there's posts. Because the thing is that I think number one for this kind of thing is how you feel is valid. This is huge. Like, so many people, and with my clients and interacting with people on social media, feel that they shouldn't feel the way they feel. And I'm a huge advocate of this. Your feelings are valid because you're feeling them. End of story. And I know that people, it's happened to me. It still happens to me. People try to invalidate your feelings. They say, what have you got to complain about? You've got a roof over your head, and they try to push down how you feel, and you feel bad. You feel, oh, well, people have got it worse than me. I shouldn't feel like this. And then with loss, it's not something that's openly talked about, and you're not supposed to because society tells you to talk about your pregnancy until you're 12 weeks, which is, when the miscarriage. But then what happens? What happened to me? I was alone. Hardly anyone knew that I was pregnant. I hadn't announced it publicly, so I had to go through something traumatic that I'd never been through before alone. I didn't know what to expect from my body, and that's not okay. If we talk openly and say, hey, I'm pregnant, and we have a loss, we know that it's extremely common and we know that it's normal. And so many women beat themselves up and think it's their body, but it's ridiculously common. The people that opened up to me when I shared, there was so many people that had one or multiple miscarriages. And so when we open up this conversation, we normalize it. People are going to feel less alone. People are going to have support to go through a traumatic time. And then the other side of it is that a loss is a loss. Like, it doesn't matter whether it's at 6 weeks or 16 weeks. It's still going to be traumatic. And it doesn't, if we continue to compare our issues, our struggles, our losses with other people, that's going to negatively affect our mental health. There's always going to be someone who's better off or worse off than you.
Always.
But that doesn't change the fact that you are struggling right now, that you feel the way you feel. And so I think the most important thing is just allowing yourself to feel these feelings and not let anyone else's personal opinions, agendas, because they're coming from a place of their experiences. Just because someone else doesn't get stressed about what you get stressed about doesn't make your stress invalid. We all get stressed by different things. We all react differently to different things. And so it's really owning that and owning how you feel and allowing yourself to feel that. And I think the other thing that came up with loss is that people feel like, oh, I need to forget about it now. It's over. Like, I've had another baby, or I'm pregnant, but it doesn't matter how big or small that loss is. A loss is a loss, and I highly doubt you'll ever forget it. And I
have not. Yeah, I've never talked to a mum who doesn't consider that a child of hers. No matter when she lost it, that's how it was a child of hers. It is a child of hers.
And you can't forget that.
Yeah, never ever. And I felt silly for sharing my pregnancies before that magic 12 weeks, as if just because the risk goes down doesn't mean, it's like, obviously it can become physically obvious at a certain point, but I felt like there was something wrong with me because I wanted to share the joy of that life, and it was like, oh, good grief, don't tell people. It's terrible. It's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. So I love that you have shared that. And I think the two things that I'm hearing we can do are, one, share our own experience so that maybe someone will hear their experience in our experience and feel not alone. And the other thing we can do is, when someone's sharing their experience, just validate it. Just say, wow, that's really hard for you. And then just be quiet. Like, if you don't
want your opinion on that person, just support them and listen to them and ask them, what can I do for you? What do you need? Do you need anything? We always try and force our opinions and our agendas and our conditioning, what we've been brought up like, to believe, on other people. And a lot of people feel like, well, we've got to really start questioning the conditionings of society if they don't feel right. The conditioning of society is, don't tell anyone you're pregnant till at least 12 weeks. And if that doesn't feel right, you shouldn't feel bad about wanting to share your exciting news.
Yeah. I had a secret. I had a secret when my youngest was about 6 weeks, and I went into the doctor's office and she asked me, how was I doing? And I burst into tears, and she's like, okay, not that well. I hadn't been able to tell my midwife, and my midwife was awesome. But every time she would come in and ask me how I was doing, it was like, yeah, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And then it just built up so much for me that I couldn't even hold it in. And it was somehow how I could tell that my doctor, when she looked at me, she genuinely wanted to know. We talked about the baby. Okay, baby's fine. And she looked at me, it was, now, how are you doing? And it was so genuine that the floodgates came, and I told her how I kind of wanted to take my baby and smash him on the table because all he did was cry and it was driving me insane. And that was where my, diagnosis came and sent off to the psychiatrist and, went on some antidepressants for a while. But at the time, I was not telling anybody about that because I'm a professional. I've got training in this stuff. I'm supposed to know what to do. I'm supposed to handle my life, right? Yet I've been through all those stories about it can't be me. It can't be me that tells everyone. Now I talk about it. I've shared it in the papers and on TV and all kinds of things. But at the time, there was so much shame in my experience. How do we get over our shame and just share?
We have to open up like that. I talked about it in my stories on Instagram yesterday. Like, if you are struggling, right, and you just do the whole "I'm fine" thing, you put your mask on, I'm fine, everything's fine. How is anybody going to be able to help you? How are you going to be able to help yourself if you ignore how you feel, if you don't ask for help, if you keep struggling alone? And how is anybody else going to feel comfortable asking for help and sharing how they feel if nobody does? If everybody keeps all this shit inside, then,
that's right.
Like if we all opened up and said, hey, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I'm struggling with, I really need some help with this, that is going to create a ripple effect of everybody around you and then around that person and around that person feeling more comfortable, less shameful to say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. I really need some help. I don't know where to start. Like, maybe I'm just going to talk to you and then it'll go from there, because there seems to be a huge amount of shame in our society about asking for help. And that's got to change, because the reason so many people are struggling is because they don't want to ask for help and they don't want to share how they feel. But the thing is, when you share how you feel, you realize how many other people feel the same, particularly motherhood related things. I see the same things. Oh, you will too, over and over again. Very, very common themes in the motherhood struggle. And if we talk about it, we can normalize it, and people are going to feel less alone, and they're going to feel like, there's not, because people feel like it's them. There's something wrong with just me. Yeah. It's just a Sarah, but it's not. Yeah. It's motherhood is hard. We've got to admit that. It's amazing, but it's hard. And the more we talk about it, the more we open up, the more we feel comfortable asking for help, the more we ask, like your doctor, how are you? The focus is hugely on the baby during pregnancy, birth, postpartum. We need to switch it up. It needs to be better for the mum. And that's why I started my business. There is a huge gap in mental and emotional support for mums. Huge. Huge. We've got to, and so I try and create that change by sharing my stories, by opening up about my journey, as well as obviously, working with my clients one-on-one and doing my business side of things. But I also think it's important to be the change in that respect. If you want to create change, you gotta step up. You gotta start.
Yeah. I agree. That's one of my favorite phrases, is be the change. And that is why I'm speaking up. Maybe I didn't speak up a long time ago, but I am on a mission, and it's why I got you on here. And so if what we're saying is resonating with our listeners, obviously you can get in touch with both of us. Is there anything you just did your challenge? Is there anything special happening in your business right now with baby number 2 on the way?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of obviously on a little bit of a deadline. I'm going to be going on maternity leave from Christmas. So I do have a few more spaces for one-on-one clients between now and Christmas. And I am actually looking at doing a level up of my free challenge. So it's basically instead of 3 days, it's a 3-week intensive focusing on those 3 core things: awareness, action, and accountability. So that is something that I am working on behind the scenes. So if anyone's interested in that, you can flick me a message.
Nice.
And otherwise I'm not sort of putting too much effort into creating new things when I'm trying to slowly wind down.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what I would love is to get you on again in about 6 months, when you're dealing with the other side of things with that babe in arms and all the new challenges that having
Yep.
2 children earthside brings.
Yeah. I definitely am going to be sharing my journey because I have, obviously no idea what to expect. No, you don't know what kind of baby you're going to get. And so like I said, I think it's just really important to share that and to, for others to know that they're not alone. And if I need help, then if I'm sharing it, then hopefully I can receive some help as well if I need it, because I know that that's important.
Yeah. Well, we do have to create our villages these days. Life isn't the same. We haven't organized society the same as, hundreds of years ago. And certainly in this new, coronavirus world, there's so much isolation. Thank goodness for technology. Here we are practically at opposite ends of New Zealand and able to get this message out all over the world. So at least we've got some things on our side. Let's focus on what we can control. And let's keep talking about this. Let's keep talking about it. Thank you so much for the work that you do. It's great to know that there's mums with young children that aren't waiting like me, and you're just getting out there and telling about it, talking about it, and helping people while you're experiencing all of this. So
all right,
thank you so much. Yeah.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And thanks for tuning in, everyone.